but I'd be interested in hearing more about that. How did you get your knowledge?
Well, primarily from becoming an atheist.
Okay.
I went about 2 decades of my adult life just calling myself an agnostic. Other people could have religion, fine for them. It meant nothing to me. Then I saw some of the things that Christians did, and they tended to polarize me and make me want to make a stronger statement. So I got to the point where I eventually called myself an atheist and started looking at things.
Okay.
And there's also a little glitch in my upbringing that attributed to it. There was a major change in my religious upbringing at the age of 10, so that, well, I started not just being sent to Sunday school, but going with the whole family and staying for the sermon all at once. And I'd missed the first 10 years of sermon zombie training, you know, where you actually drift off into some fantasy land during the sermon and don't get anything out of it. I mean, I was so naive, I stayed awake and listened. And for a few years thought, yeah, this is good, this is sensible. And then I grew to realize that some of the stuff I was hearing was awful strange. So, you know, when I recall pet phrases and such from the Bible, that's because they actually hit me a little later in life where I was a little more developed than most people and stuck a little better.
Okay, and what religion were you brought up in?
Well, I was raised in a Baptist group, kind of like Southern Baptists, but they were later split off from American Baptists, so they avoided the onus of slavery.
Okay.
They call themselves the General Association of Regular Baptist Churches, or GARBC. They do the acronym instead of just calling themselves Regular Baptists.
GARBC?
Yeah, I guess they wouldn't want to imply that other Baptists were irregular or anything.
Okay, and in a little bit you're going to talk to us about Palm Sunday, is that right?
Palm Sunday, I think there's a major error in just about every Palm Sunday sermon. And
okay.
I'll cover that and I'll launch that into a kind of general overview of how cultural bias affects what Christians think or what religious people think and what is actually in their historic and scriptural background.
Okay. Before we do that, Jeff, would you like to update us on news and announcements?
Sure. Do you want me to do the regular announcements?
Sure.
Okay. We are members of the Atheist Community of Austin. Our weekly meetings take place every Sunday morning at the Hot Jumbo Bagelry, 307 West 5th Street at 10:30, right after the show. Except when on the first Sunday of each month, which is our regular lecture series at Furr's Cafeteria at North Cross Mall. Our board meetings take place every the second Sunday of every month at noon. Want to remind everybody about the Free Thought Roundup 1999 Atheist Alliance Convention being hosted next weekend, Easter weekend, by the Atheist Community of Austin at Austin's downtown Omni Hotel, where I understand we're going to be taped next week because we're all going to be over there at the convention. The ACA is also going to be participating in Safe Places Walk for Safe Families and Safe Streets on April 18, leaving from the Bagelry to register at noon and march at 2 o'clock. And the walk will be at Wooldridge Park, it says here. For more information, call our voicemail at 371-2911. And I also want to make a special mention today. Don is acting as guest host today because Ray is behind the camera getting qualified on the mobile multi-camera equipment so we can do even cooler stuff in future on the show here. And we want to thank Don for pitching in at the last minute to take over the host slot. And now on to regular news items. This is the biggest news for atheists in going on right now. David Waters, an ex-convict and the former office manager for vanished atheist Madeleine Murray O'Hare, has been arrested on federal firearms charges after a dozen agents spent 8 hours searching his car and apartment. Charges filed at the federal courthouse said agents found 119 rounds of ammunition in the search. And I know I have a list of what that ammunition is, but who cares? Waters' lawyer, Patrick Gann of Austin, said federal officials told him Waters was being implicated by others who were also questioned Wednesday. The series of coordinated actions Wednesday was the first public hint that leads may be developing in one of the century's most baffling celebrity disappearances. A second ex-convict has been ordered held in Michigan on a federal weapons count as investigators try to determine whether he and Waters, his former prison mate, had any role in Madalyn Murray O'Hare's disappearance. Gary P. Carr, 50, of Novi, Michigan, was arrested after FBI agents and police searched his suburban Detroit apartment Wednesday and found 2 loaded handguns, court papers allege. So that's interesting. We might actually be finding out what went on there. We've all been kind of curious, not that most of us really miss her.
There's a point I want to bring up on that item,
Okay.
Jeff. The headlines in the American Statesman here in Austin said, O'Hare affiliate
In reference to
implicated.
what?
It's Mr.
O'Hare.
Waters. Now, Mr. Waters was an employee that she discharged for embezzlement.
Right.
And
Pled guilty to stealing that.
yeah, I
stealing
can't
money
think
from
of
her.
too many other employers where an employee is fired for wrongdoing and is later referred to, actually the word was associate, as so-and-so's associate. If my contract were to end at IBM, I don't think I'd be referred to in the future as Lou Gerstner's associate now, would I?
Yeah, but it's exactly the word you want to use if you want to say that, you know, make a big point about that guy being an atheist.
But he wasn't. Madalyn O'Hare often complained that she was had to be surrounded by law by the enemies in her own camp. Most of the people working for her weren't atheists. She couldn't insist that they would be. So I look at it as kind of a smear and as proof that atheists don't get equal treatment in the press.
Yeah.
But okay, you brought up a real interesting point that if we have a if I'm running a Baptist organization, I can insist that everybody there be Baptist. But if I'm running an atheist organization, I can't do that.
Right.
Is that what you're saying?
Exactly.
Really?
By law. By law. That's very interesting. And so a lot of the people that worked at the headquarters when it was here in town were not atheists at all.
Oh yeah.
Okay. That's
Now,
interesting.
atheists would come in just to work there, you know,
Right.
to be part of it, to think they were doing some
Right.
good there, and then get disenchanted and leave or get fired. It seems almost that she pushed a turnover among atheists so that she could be on her cable TV show and just cry to the audience that, oh, she was forced to have the enemy in her own camp.
Well, another issue here is this is looking more and more like a murder case, which was really ignored by the Austin Police Department. I wonder if is that accurate or
It certainly
or not.
seems to me to be that case. What's interesting now is her son that turned into the preacher is publicly lambasting the Austin Police Department.
I
So it'll be interesting to see if Christians can get an investigation going that atheists couldn't.
Okay.
That's interesting. We'll have to see what they come up with. We're
That's
all watching
right.
that story with great interest. Authors defend evolution teaching. I want to thank Joe Zemecki for bringing this story to our attention. Fearing a growing assault on the teaching of Darwin's theories, a group of textbook authors has launched a campaign in defense of evolution education. A joint statement to be released, well, I guess it was released yesterday, at the National Science Teachers Association, a convention of 20,000 science teachers, comes as some public school districts consider softening their evolution curricula. Quote, "As scientists and teachers, we find it unacceptable that school districts considering our books for adoption would be encouraged to choose one book over another based on the perception that teachers should avoid the topic of evolution," the statement by 23 authors reads. Backed by the California-based National Center for Science Education, the signers include Bruce Alberts, president of the National Academy of Sciences. Assisted suicide observers ponder a future without Kevorkian. Dr. Kevorkian is in prison. And I just bring this up, not that it's specifically an atheist issue, but the question of life and death and what constitutes life and what constitutes death and does your soul go on to some happier place afterwards is something that I think people might be interested in getting an atheist perspective on, because we're certainly going to look at it differently than those people that assume that their spirit is going to go up to be with God when they're dead. And a little bit of scientific skepticism in the news, study questions herbs and infertility. Scientists have uncovered a new worry about some of the most popular herbal remedies, the possibility that they could cause infertility or genetically damaged sperm. Many women who are pregnant or trying to conceive carefully avoid taking prescriptions and even over-the-counter medications for fear that they could endanger their chances for a healthy pregnancy. But herbs and other dietary supplements are advertised as natural, with the implication that they're safe, non-drug remedies. In fact, many powerful prescription drugs were derived from plants, and many of the herbs sold in health food stores and supermarkets can also have powerful medicine-like actions and side effects. The new study by researchers at Loma Linda University suggests that some side effects of some popular herbs, St. John's wort, echinacea, and ginkgo, could include blocking conception. The study also uncovered suggestions of genetic damage to sperm, raising questions of whether such changes could cause problems for the resulting baby. An infertility specialist says the study reinforces warnings he already gives people to avoid such products while trying to conceive, because it's better to be safe than sorry. Quote, "I do tell folks to stop taking them when they're doing fertility treatment," said Dr. Eric Widra of Georgetown University. Patients constantly ask him if there isn't something, quote, "Isn't there something I could go to the health food store and get that's going to help me?" he said. They think natural is good. What's most important about this study is that it illustrates something that gets lost in the discussion of herbal preparations, Widra said. Despite an apparent high degree of willingness among people to try those things, there's very little science to back up their safety.
Wow, that's kind of, that's interesting. We had a speaker a while back, Rowan Weiner, talk about the large lack of science behind a lot of the holistic medical approaches.
Yeah, it's just federally tolerated quackery. There are laws that make it legal for these guys to go out there and sell stuff like medicine that has not undergone any kind of scientific testing whatsoever. And at first the big outcry was, oh, us little herbal remedy manufacturers are being unfairly disadvantaged by the great big pharmaceutical companies. Watch what the great big pharmaceutical companies are doing now. They're all jumping on the herbal remedy bandwagon. So, the issue is, does the stuff actually work? And you're only going to find that out by testing it and finding out what it really does. And the herbal remedy community has been very resistant to the concept of scientific testing on their claim that science is biased against them. But is just letting people sell quack cures really the right response to that? I don't know. One last thing I wanted to bring up, I've been harping recently on the religious aspect of the war in Serbia, and I was watching CNN the other day, and some major Serbian spokesman, I think it was their foreign minister, but I'm not absolutely sure about that, was asked by CNN about calls by Serbian extremists for Serbians worldwide to rise up and attack the infrastructure of the NATO allies. And CNN wanted to know if this was the official position of the Serbian government. He replied, quote, "Serbia is a Christian nation. We do not believe in revenge," unquote. Well, apparently some of them do, at least the extremists who are calling for this, and apparently most of the rest of them have no big problem with genocide. So just once again, it's important to keep in mind there is a religious undercurrent to the conflict in Serbia right now, and that shouldn't be forgotten. These people look at themselves as justified, but both sides look at themselves as being justified in whatever it is they do by their religion.
Thank you very much, Jeff.
That's the news.
Well, in case you're tuning in late, my name is Don Rhoades, and I'm substituting for Ray Blevins today, our regular host, and it's an exciting time to be an atheist. One reason is next weekend we have the Free Thought Roundup, the 5th annual convention of the Atheist Alliance, downtown in the Omni Hotel. Guest speakers and workshops will include Dan Barker, who's Public Relations Director of the Freedom from Religion Foundation, Douglas Kruger, who authored a very, very nice work called What is Atheism? Dr. Arthur F. Ide, who has written hundreds of books, including The Pope's Barrel, A Frank Study of Sex and Corruption in the Vatican. We have West Virginia journalist James A. Hott will speak on the $1 trillion fraud. Ben Ackerley, author of The X-Rated Bible, will discuss the Bible in the bedroom, a look at how biblical ideas have influenced our current sensibilities. We'll have Adam Butler, who was Freedom from Religion Foundation's 1998 Student Activist of the Year. We'll talk about his experiences as an Alabama freethinker. And we'll have atheist school teacher John Kuntz, who is an ACA member, talk about teaching evolution to a hostile audience. The folks from OBITAR, which is Objectivity and Balance in Teaching About Religion, will give a presentation on teaching about atheism in those public schools where overview classes about religion are taught. We'll have a workshop on parliamentary procedure for small groups, and we'll have a dramatic reading of Deathbird, a work by noted atheist author Harlan Ellison. We've got a couple of nice meals planned, and on Friday night we're going to Esther's Follies, and it's going to be a lot of fun. I'm really looking forward to it. Well, can you tell us some stuff about Palm Sunday?
Well, I think I can, but there's a little chore and errata item that I want to take care of first. I didn't give a caller his full due last time I was on the show 4 weeks ago.
Okay.
I'd mentioned in response to one of Jeff's news items about, I think it was a Baptist organization that had a scoundrel in their midst and took forever to realize it, that I recalled something early on in Matthew about by their works ye shall know them, and how Christians are charged with getting rid of those bad apples, so to speak. I didn't remember exactly where it was. Well, a caller called in and pointed me in the right direction, and I managed to miss it. So I want to apologize to that caller and thank him for calling in and kind of explain what went wrong here. There's a passage that runs in Matthew chapter 7 from verses 15 to 20. He referred me to verse 20, and it has that phrase, so by their fruits or by their works you will know them. And it repeats it in closing from verse 16 where it appears earlier. So here I thought I was in that first occurrence, trying to get my bearings, looking at the verse earlier to find the wolves in sheep's clothing anecdote, and looking behind it to find an instruction to kick them out of your midst, and kind of missing the mark in both cases.
Okay.
What added to it was I had highlighted the following verse that starts a new passage, verse 21. I'd like to read that now. Not everyone who says to me, Lord, Lord, will enter the kingdom of heaven, but only the one who does the will of my Father in heaven. Now, this is a point I've made the 2 previous times I've been on the show, that there's this chasm between salvation books in the New Testament and the books that have hell, or actually words that are later translated to hell, like Gehenna and Hades. And I highlighted this because this is their version of salvation. It's very much works, it's doing the will. It's not the simple one item or 3 item or 5 item thing like so many groups have. It's not just merely belief in a few rituals. So there's that chasm again. It's not relevant to my topic, but it's part of what threw me off. And another part is, well, my poor memory. My memory faded over time, and I thought here we'd have a rather direct instruction to cast them out from your midst, and instead it was given allegorically. So the 3 verses in between the fruits, by their fruits you will know them reference, talks about a tree that's no good for anything because it doesn't bear fruit anymore. It's only worth throwing in the fire and burning. That's an allegory, folks. That's not meant to be taken literally. But some Christians, and I guess they're the spiritual antecedents of those that on our show tell us that we're being too intellectual, take literally, and that's been the way Christians have killed people over time, is burn them to death. So again, my apologies to the caller for giving me information and me not thinking quick enough to do what I should have with it last month.
Before you you go further, I'd like for you to summarize, if you will, because I've never heard it from anybody else. What you said about the difference between the different chapters, how there are salvation chapters and or you called them redemption. Was that it?
Well, Some Christian groups would use redemption, others use justification. I came from a background where salvation was a chosen word. They use it to mean avoid hell and gain heaven, of course.
Okay.
But, you know, I noticed early on when given the passages to memorize as a teenager that, well, there's no heaven or hell mentioned in John 3:16. It's shall not perish but have everlasting life. There's no heaven or hell mentioned in Romans 3:23. The wages of sin is death, but the gift of God is eternal life. So the heaven and hell notions come from this other group of writings that none of the salvation plan verses that those of us who grew up in fundamentalist or evangelical backgrounds relied upon. It's a different theology. We got the deadly sins, you must persevere to the end, you can blow it if you do this, you can blow it to do that, a whole different scheme.
Okay.
And it parallels, I really wanted to get into this more deeply in a later show, but it parallels a similar split, a similar duality in the Old Testament, where basically the prophets say one thing and the priests say something else, and there seems to be quite a rivalry over time. It would really be fun to get into that in depth sometime.
Okay.
So maybe I'll come back and do that some other day.
Okay, well, let me just remind our audience that we are live today. It's the 28th of March. Feel free to call in and ask any of us any questions you want, and I'll turn it back over to you.
Okay. I wanted to start off here with a quote that I found that kind of sort of applies to what I want to talk about. Albert Einstein in 1952 wrote, "Somebody who reads only newspapers and at best books of contemporary authors looks to me like an extremely nearsighted person who scorns eyeglasses. He's completely dependent on the prejudices and fashions of his times, since he never gets to see or hear anything else. And what a person thinks on his own, without being stimulated by the thoughts and experiences of other people, is even in the best case rather paltry and monotonous. There are only a few enlightened people with a lucid mind and style and with good taste within a given century. What has been preserved of their work belongs among the most precious possessions of mankind. We owe it to a few writers of antiquity that the people in the Middle Ages could slowly extricate themselves from the superstitions and ignorance that had darkened life for more than half a millennium." And so I want to talk about the need to look at what other periods had to say, other epochs of time, and other cultures to avoid cultural bias. And I picked Palm Sunday to do that because that'll be my opening anecdote. In every Palm Sunday sermon I ever had to sit through, at some point or other, the minister or preacher said something about Jesus humbling himself by riding an ass, riding a lowly ass. And this doesn't quite jive with what I find in the Old Testament, where I find what we look today as being a rather humble animal was rather exalted, actually, was the right of choice. Now, when I was first on the show in January, I mentioned a reference to the ass in the written 10 Commandments of Exodus chapter 34. In particular, I mentioned the sacrifice the firstborn of every womb commandment, and where the first escape clause was given for the baby ass. You could redeem an ass by sacrificing 2 birds of some sort. And the only other exclusion given, and it was given secondary after that one, was the baby human. The firstborn male baby human, you could redeem it too, though for some reason they forgot to state what the redemption price was. So it looks like, yeah, the ass was pretty important there in the written, the etched in stone, 10 Commandments. But I also noticed that when Abraham went to sacrifice his son Isaac, he rode on an ass when he did that. So the great patriarch, that was his means of conveyance. We see that Jacob's sons, when they went to Egypt, rode asses. And Jacob's sons are the namesakes of the so-called 12 tribes of Israel. We find that when Moses was talked to by a burning bush and ordered back to Egypt after he killed that Egyptian in cold blood, that he put his wife and sons on an ass. So it's the ride of the early patriarchs. It's the ride of the family of the great Savior of the Jews, Moses. I read on in Judges that a couple of the judges were so wealthy and powerful that their wealth was demonstrated by their ability to provide an ass for each of their sons to ride. In the 10th chapter of Judges, verse 4 actually, we're told that Jer was, well, so important that all 30 of his sons could ride asses. 2 chapters later, in Judges 12:14, we see a game of one-upmanship among the judges. We see Judge Abdon, so very important that all 40 of his sons could ride asses, and not only that, but his 30 nephews as well. Moving on, we find that when Abigail is going off to marry King David with her ladies-in-waiting and all, and this wedding procession on to marry the greatest king of Judea, she is riding an ass. It's the animal to ride in one's wedding procession. We find that the counselor to Prince Absalom in 2 Samuel chapter 17 rode an ass. 2 chapters later, we find that the son of Jonathan, Prince Meribal, also rode an ass. Oh, and I skipped one there. Balaam, on his way to meet with the other princes of Moab, rode an ass. Some of you who had church forced on you in your youth might remember the Sunday school lesson about that. His ass stopped and started talking to him. Don't you hate it when that happens? I prefer my ass just to stay perfectly quiet. But humbling himself, it seems to me that over and over and over again, it's a tie back to Jewish royalty.
Okay.
And that his marching in there riding that animal was a connection to what the messianic legend was expecting, which was an earthly ruler claiming descendancy from David. And of course that didn't happen. He got killed instead. Yeah.
Oh, we've got some callers backing up now. If you want to, whatever point you feel that it's a good time to take a break.
Oh my
answer
goodness.
some messages.
Well, I had a good deal more material, but there's just one thing on current cultural bias that I do want to bring up, and I'm kind of getting into your turf, Jeff. I've got a news item here from the San Francisco papers the last week. It seems the city of San Francisco has agreed to pay a 6-figure settlement to a man who was beaten up on a city bus by a uniformed bus driver who, prior to pummeling him, shouted out, "Don't you know what's right? Don't you know what's wrong? Don't you read the Bible?" And what this man had done, which made this Bible-spouting bus driver so irate, was he had kissed another man goodnight before the other man had gotten off the bus. And kissing in public, apparently, to this man's culturally biased outlook of Christianity, is a very big no-no, and apparently excuses physical violence. However, when I read Romans chapter 16, verse 16, I find it says something different once again. That verse starts with the phrase, "Greet each other with a brotherly kiss." So this Christian actually is irate and does permanent damage to another man for doing what his own scripture commands him to do.
Don't forget the intimate way of taking a testimony in the Old Testament. Placing the hand between the thighs.
Yeah, I had
Testimony.
included that too, and that's to be found where? Genesis, I wrote it down on one of these. Genesis 47, verse 29. Actually, my reference is, I'm pointing to the great voice up there of Arlo.
Yes.
My reference is something a bit different. It's the goodbye. If anyone was to challenge and say, well, it says greet them, it doesn't say goodbye that way. Well, the biblical way to say goodbye is to stick your hand under the other man's thigh. That's the reference to Genesis 47:29. What Arlo brings up, the more frontal approach, is at some other spots in Genesis as well. And boy, try doing that on a city bus and see what happens, huh, Arlo?
Okay, all
Got
right.
some primed callers here.
We
Okay.
appreciate the callers' patience, and let's talk to Mark. Morning, Mark. Whoa.
Goodbye, Mark.
Put him back on hold. We'll
Okay. Yeah,
Okay.
Well, I'm trying to.
Uh-oh.
I think we lost.
I think we lost one.
Guess we have to just ask him to call back and we'll give him priority.
Do we want to wait?
Yeah.
Well, callers, just hold on, and
That means the other
Mark,
two lines will
Mark
screech
call
too?
back. We really don't know.
Well, then I'll do some more of my material.
Yeah.
Okay,
Sure,
we're-
do that.
Should we go on?
Because in addition to those examples of Christian bias today, it occurred to me that maybe there was some Christian bias in the early days when they were writing their own body of Scripture and making certain claims about what another religion, Scripture, the Jews, had to say. And maybe they got some stuff wrong there due to a cultural bias too. And my first example is back to that very Palm Sunday, that first Palm Sunday again. Now, 3 of the 4 Gospels have no problem with it. Mark, Luke, and John are all consistent in saying Jesus rode 1 ass, but for some reason, Matthew embellishes a bit, which, gee, he tended to do anyways. Matthew has Jesus ride 2 asses, which is a pretty comical sight if you picture it.
I've seen that in a circus.
You've seen that in a circus?
Well, with a horse, not with
a
2
horse,
asses.
straddling 2 horses.
Well, yeah, a foot on each one.
You're trying to get my bad joke out of me. You know, asses are a lot lower to the ground, so if you straddle 2 of them, there might be a number of ass tracks. I was going to pass that. I know it's in bad taste. It's an American English pun and wouldn't work anywhere else, so it's a result of cultural bias itself. But Matthew's cultural bias was that he misunderstood Zechariah chapter 9, verse 9 when he read it. It reads, "Say to daughter Zion, behold, your king comes to you, meek and riding on an ass, on a colt, the foal of a beast of burden." He sees the ass and then later the colt, so he thinks Jesus is supposed to ride the ass and the foal of an ass as well. Apparently he didn't understand Jewish literary style very well. Interesting footnote in my New American Bible for Catholics. No Catholicism in my background, but I do realize that there are 4 out of 7 Christians worldwide, a majority of Christians. Most other Christians are actually protesting Catholics. They've split off from them at some time, and coming from a background that called itself Bible-based believers, the Catholic viewpoint that they're really bibliolaters. They look at the Bible for what they want to see in there instead of what it really has to say. It's come to mean a lot to me. So this has some rather refreshing and honest footnotes that I don't find in Protestant Bibles. I'd like to read part of what it says in a footnote to Matthew's little blunder with the 2 asses here. None of the other 3 Gospels needed to put Jesus on 2 asses. One of the reasons why some scholars think that he was a Gentile rather than a Jewish Christian who would presumably not make that mistake. It's you know, a lot of so-called Bible-based believers have as a religious icon that Matthew had to have been written by the disciple Matthew, who definitely would have known better. Are we in position to try the phones, or shall I go on?
I tell you what, we're going to try again, and we have Jesus working on the problem here,
and
so let's try.
We're going to give a risk on Bill, huh?
One more time. Hello, Bill.
Hello.
Good morning.
I can't hear you, I don't think. Can one of you please speak?
Bill, can you hear me?
Hold on, I'll have to turn up the sound of my TV.
Sorry about that. They're working on the phones.
There. Okay.
Okay. Can you hear us now?
Yeah, I needed the TV on.
Yeah. Don't be near that TV.
Not too loud.
One moment. Trying.
Okay.
Okay, there we go.
Okay, we're getting some feedback here.
Now I got it, because now I can hear you on the phone.
Oh, you can?
Okay, very good. Very good.
Good morning.
Okay, good morning.
I have a general question or
now
two.
we can't hear you.
Hang on there, Bill. They're still messing with the phones.
Okay, I'm going to put Bill back on hold. Okay, Bill, you're back on hold, and we're working on our technical difficulties with the callers. Callers, I appreciate your patience.
Can you please take them off hold, though? We think we can figure this out. So.
Okay. Here we go.
Take him off hold.
Bill?
You there?
Yes.
Okay.
I think you got it.
Okay, I hope so.
All right. I have a couple of questions. One that comes to mind, is your organization almost exclusively ex-Christians, or do you have ex-Jews, ex-Buddhists, ex-Hindus, and so on?
Well, the demographics of the country is largely, predominantly Christian. So yes, the largest numbers of our group are people that were raised as Christian. There's certainly lots of atheists that were raised Jewish or other other faiths. I don't recall somebody saying that they were a Buddhist, but atheism is something that kind of happens to people that think about these kinds of things, regardless of the background they came from.
We certainly don't
I'm
discriminate.
wondering-
We don't ask people that in the group, to only join if they're ex-Christians.
Right.
We'd take them if we could get them.
We have someone from a Muslim background. I think we have somebody from a Jewish background, or at least an occasional visitor.
Yeah.
You bet.
And we also have a number who were never religious of any sort. They actually were raised in atheist families.
Right.
Boy, there's that feedback.
Right. And here's my question. I'm not saying that it is so, but the fact that most of you are ex-Christians and come from a background of the overwhelming majority, as you pointed out, that the shock of becoming a minority is much greater than, say, a Hindu who comes to atheism or a Jew who comes to atheism here in this country, where they're used to being the minority and looking at an overwhelming majority that doesn't make sense. Any thoughts or comments on that?
Sure. Let me address the Jewish issue first. We've met lots of people who say I'm an atheist, but then they still call themselves a Jew, because you have this multifaceted thing about Jewishness. It's not just a religion; it's a culture. It's a tribal thing. For us, I was a Methodist when I was a kid. And in my transition to adulthood, I put that away and became something else. Yes, from a majority point of view to a minority, and taking on the atheist label can be difficult for somebody who's
Used to the majority label.
Well, if you're,
In other words,
if
is
you
it
care
easier
what
in
people
America
think of you,
for a Hindu
hold
or
on just a
Jew-
second, Bill. If you care what people think of you, a lot of people have a reaction to that word without getting to know you at all. They can there's prejudice. There's a lot of negative baggage that word carries. But it's also kind of precise, and it tells you exactly where we stand. If I say I'm a humanist, you might go, oh, well, that's, kind of vague and, probably kind of positive, but it doesn't really say all that much about a position on something.
Or even free thinker isn't necessarily that
right.
clear, especially in
It's
comfort.
It's not.
Yeah, there are a lot of people out there who look at things exactly the same way we do, but just don't want to use that word, and that's a point of contention amongst some of us.
Okay. Like I say, my question, and wasn't a position, is whether or not Christians in this society and some others who come to atheism have a rougher time of it, that majority-minority thing, just as a Hindu would in India, let's say. A topical question, since we have the Bible expert on, which is almost an oxymoron in itself, war and waging of war. I'm familiar with some Old Testament commandments for that, but are there any New Testament ones?
Can you clarify a little bit? New Testament commandments to
Well,
wage
like
war or not to wage
God
war?
commanded Moses and the Israelites to conquer certain specific city-states in the land of Canaan. My question is, does the New Testament, the word of Jesus, command Christians to wage war?
I wouldn't think so, though there is something towards the end of Luke, prior to Palm Sunday, where he tells his followers to sell their second cloaks and buy swords. So it looks to me like maybe it started out that way, but it's been rewritten so much over time.
Was that in a defensive context or an offensive context?
Well, he's about to enter a city in a procession.
Okay.
It looks a little bit offensive to me.
Where's that line about about Jesus saying, "I didn't come to make peace; I came with a sword"?
I think that's Matthew's version. Luke does it, "I came not to bring peace, but division."
That's the same. It's different versions of the same statement.
Division and sword.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Of course, picking out one verse that so-called justifies war. I'm sure there are many others that condemn it, and of course that's the whole story of the Bible, is all the contrarian views in there, in and among itself.
Good point.
And another time, the gentleman on my right is on, might want to, as a topic someday, bring out all the contrarian points.
That'd have to be a rather extended series.
Yeah. There you go. Sign up for a PBS series or something, huh?
There are some great websites out there and books on the subject of Bible contradictions.
Okay. Well, I guess that's enough for today. I'll let someone else get in, and keep up the good work, guys.
Good talking
Thanks for
with
your
you,
call, Bill.
Bye.
Okay, let's go to...
I think you already went to Sandy, did you?
Did I go to
Yeah,
Sandy?
headline one? Or we lost her?
We lost our previous one. Let's go to 3.
Oh, okay.
Okay, well, something happened there. I don't know. Okay. Okay, have we got Janet on here?
Yes, hi.
Hi, Janet.
Hi, guys. I don't want to interrupt the flow of today's Bible lesson, but I did want to make a comment offer a slight correction to something that Don said at near the beginning of the show, when y'all were talking about Madeline O'Hare and her former office manager, and Don made the comment that a Baptist organization, they could hire only Baptists and that would be okay. My understanding is that is not legal, even if it is current practice, and that is one of the motivations behind the so-called Religious Freedom Restoration Act, is that they want to allow individuals and organizations to discriminate on religious basis. So it's going to be destroying equal protection under the law, because what kind of treatment you get depends on the religious biases of the person that you're dealing with.
Well, I can present a case which pretty much establishes the contrary. The city of San Francisco is one of the first places in the country to pass an employment protection ordinance for gay people. So the single male church organist of a Baptist church decided to come out and was immediately fired. This was the first test case of the city ordinance, and it was determined that the religious freedom to hire and fire whoever they want took precedence over that man's civil rights.
There was also a case, and I'm not sure how far it went up, but there was a case of in the Mormon Church, I believe it was a school, was discharging people when they were no longer, I believe the term is temple certified, and that was upheld. Now I don't know if that was a Supreme Court case or not, but it's my impression that the courts have looked favorably on efforts of churches to cleanse, or however you want to say it, to discriminate, essentially.
Well, that may be true, and
employees.
that's a scary fact. But I think the Religious Freedom Restoration Act is even scarier, because it wants to make it a legislative policy rather than simply a judicial prejudice.
And you are preaching to the choir there. if
Well,
I
I
can use an expression.
know. I just wanted
Absolutely.
to, bring up that issue and make sure that folks were aware of it. That our rights are even further under attack than they've ever been.
Yes, absolutely. The Texas version of the Religious Freedom Restoration Act is nothing more than a lightly cloaked attempt to give special privileges and rights to religious people, religious organizations, and it's unnecessary and it's scary.
Right, it has passed one of the bodies of the Texas legislature. I think it was the Senate, but I don't recall offhand. So just wanted to bring that up and make sure that folks were aware of that. So, but you carry on with your Bible lesson. I'll see y'all later.
Okay, we'll see you at the bagel
Thanks,
shop.
Janet.
Okay.
Thanks, Janet. And I want to jump in here for just a second and
That was 3.
and point out we care about what the facts actually are in this show, even if we say stuff and we're wrong. Notice that we started the show with a correction of a misstatement by our guest's previous appearance, right, which was entirely voluntary on his part. We are here to look at the way things actually are, and if we're wrong about stuff, we want to hear about it and we want to correct it. You won't find this on most of your Christian shows. So
Thank you.
What's
And,
next?
Well, you want to let's take somebody else. Who's next up, Keith? Okay, let's go to Sandy. Good morning, Sandy.
Hi.
How you doing?
Well, I just wanted to say people don't have a right to be mad at y'all just because of y'all's beliefs, because that isn't right, and that's not very Christian, Christian-like on our standpoint.
Oh.
But what I want to say is, what if y'all are wrong?
Oh, well, first of all, I'd like to take issue with what you said.
Go ahead.
You said that it wouldn't be very Christian of them to,
yeah, if
of people to hold it against us what we believe, and I mean, believe me, I know a lot of Christians that are very tolerant. I mean, the ones that aren't, they don't stay friends very long, and I have a lot of people that I love that are Christian, but. I just want to point out that, and I bet my guest here can tell you the verse. It seems like it's Luke. Is it Luke 19:27?
I can look it up. What are you getting to?
Where it says something about, and those that would not that I should reign over them, bring hither and slay them before me. To me, that's what the Bible says.
And there's what Paul says. To the effect that if like us, you say that you don't happen to believe in the Christian God, then you are a murderer, a slanderer, and all this huge list of evil things that we are. And Paul justifies that by saying that your God will make us that way, and that's how you can be certain that all those that we are all those bad things. So. Whether it certainly, we would certainly agree with you that it's not nice to attack people for their beliefs, but if you say it's not Christian, well, I guess that depends on your interpretation of your own holy book.
We appreciate it. I mean, if you're a tolerant person.
Well, I never read it quite like that. I don't understand. Just Paul also speaks about don't stand in the street and scream at people and judge people, and he talks in the third chapter of Romans also, don't judge anyone for their lifestyle, because you're no better than him. No, I don't think anybody should judge y'all for y'all's belief, because, if we're all brothers and sisters, you're our brothers and sisters as well, if you all want to believe whichever way.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying, what if you're wrong?
Can I comment on that you just
let's
said?
just go to that one thing. What if you're wrong? I mean, you got nothing to lose this way, but you got everything to lose if you're wrong.
But man, what if you're wrong? What if the real God?
Wait. Yeah. What if I do believe? I spend my whole life believing, and I feel good, and I give, and I love, and everything, and then I gain salvation, and I have a wonderful everlasting life of eternity. But what? And so what do I lose? Nothing.
Well,
but what if it's right? What if it's right, and what he is saying is true? Then y'all have lost everything.
Sure.
Well, what if the Quran's right?
Hold on just a second. Can we hang up and we'll address your question? Would that be all right?
Why can't I stay on?
Well, okay. We have a sure, but please let us finish and.
Sure, go ahead.
Okay. You go first. I think we all want a shot at this.
Well,
this is a big one.
The thing about Pascal's wager is, and that's what that is. Okay, it's formulated. If you should believe because there's all these goodies that Christianity promises you, and so if it's true, you gain all this stuff. But if it wasn't true, then all that happened was you believed some stuff that wasn't right, and you're dead anyway. So what's the big deal? The problem is that completely fails to take into account issues like, what if Odin happens to be the real God, and he'll fry you in hell for eternity, not for worshiping him? So there's an inherent bias in the way that Pascal's wager is usually interpreted, that the only possible God is the Christian one, and that's just not necessarily so. So it still comes down to a matter of, can you prove it? And we consider, in our opinion, that it hasn't been proved, and it's not worth it. Then there's a whole separate issue of, what sort of God who really cares about people being good people is going to fall for a simple cost-benefit analysis sort of, yeah, I'm going to be a Christian because, I'm just going along because maybe I'll get my prize. If you really care about people being really good people, then it should be about that. It shouldn't be about trying to win some kind of special bonus after
Okay,
the
let
end.
us finish.
What was the thing that she said before? I had something to say about what you said before that. But
Well, let's
pass this on to the next one.
let's deal with Pascal and his wager here. It's my turn. Okay. What I see in this, first of all, is that it assumes that it's okay to believe something to get something, and it ignores truth. It just completely ignores the fact of let's care about what's really true, and let's not just believe something to try to get something. It does matter what's true, and the only way to find truth is to seek it, and not have all these little games going on about it. Also, you made the very clear statement. If your picture of the universe is correct, then I am rejecting God and Jesus and all that, and I will fry forever in hell, eternal torment and all that. Now, I understand that, and let me make it perfectly clear that if I thought that there was a little chance of that being true, I wouldn't be here. I don't. I mean, it's not something that I haven't thought about. I have, and I reject it. Take it.
Okay, what do I want to do with it? Well, you two covered it pretty well. I'll go off on a bit of a tangent, but I'll try to be short. There's a story in the first two Gospels about Jesus going to the fig tree to get fruit, but it wasn't the season, so the fig tree didn't have any fruit. So Jesus cursed the fig tree, and it withered. And how could any being that's that capricious have managed to keep the world together without destroying it in some little snit by now? I mean, what is there to believe? It's so absurd that it has to be rejected.
Well, then what do you think all this came from?
Well, okay, hold on just a second. Speaking of absurd, there's all the stuff that in the Bible and that we've all heard from ministers and stuff, telling you how you get saved, and it's about being gullible. And so the plan is that here the most intelligent, wise, knowledgeable, all these omnis is that's our hotel, by the way. All these this supreme creator, ruler of the universe is going to decide your eternal reward or punishment based on how gullible you are. That's ridiculous.
I'm not saying that all these preachers, there hasn't been a few bad preachers, because there has been, but in my own experience, when I didn't believe quite like the way I do believe now, I seeked God my own self, and He showed me, not through some preacher, not through just reading, through an experience, through one-on-one. And I'm just saying, I know, you say it's a game. It's not a game. I mean, He's trying to give the world a chance, and He's allowing a lot of time, and He's been, and it wasn't, He didn't do this, you see. He didn't start all this. There was also another entity, which was called Satan, who rejected His love and rejected His way, which He gave him power. So therefore, I mean, the whole world is based upon you get and you give. You go to work, you get a paycheck. So when you say why, I mean, it's not a game. It's just the way the world is. If there's a war, we go out there because we have to protect. Why bother? Because we're living, and this is a part of life. So if and God, the omnipotent, if He designed the world, we're just little creatures, and we still do the same thing every day. We go to work, we get our paycheck. And He's saying, I'm saying if there is a second chance and this world is destroyed, I personally, I would hate to see this ending for you. That would be sad, because you are supposed to be a part of us. And I'm just saying, what if there is? Maybe you should just seek God a little harder, one-on-one, and see if there is, just so you won't blow the chance.
And then that comes down to what Don was saying about gullibility. Ultimately, Christianity comes down to a request by religious leaders that those of us out here should just believe, and then we would find...
Yes,
no, wait.
It does.
Yeah, no, it does. It does. You got to be open to it. You got to seriously consider this. What from our perspective seems to be a completely silly and entirely nonsensical premise. We have to be willing to seriously consider that, and that makes it possible for us to believe. Well, yeah, but that would work for pretty much any completely ridiculous
I think
and
if you
silly
would
premise.
take all the big politicalness, all your big words, and just get one-on-one with God, you would find Him.
Well, how am I supposed to get one?
How do you do that?
If God
Just
would like to
notice-
call into the show or appear magically in front of us,
No,
certainly
get in
any
your- no,
kind of
go-
real God would have that power.
No.
He would be welcome, and
Go in your
that
room.
would be some evidence.
Go in your room tonight, each one of you,
And start
go
believing
ask-
as you believe.
Would you
ma'am.
please stop
No.
interrupting us?
Well, you're interrupting. Yeah, 3 against 1. Now, I'm just saying, it's my turn. Y'all all three said what you wanted to say. I'm saying each one of you seek Him, on private, and you might have an experience that would convince you.
Speak in private.
Sandy,
With what?
Sandy, thanks for
What?
your call.
Pray.
Thanks for your call. We appreciate it. And we
Okay.
appreciate that you're tolerant. That's important.
And God bless y'all.
I would hope to interrupt everybody. A way to turn this whole thing around to many of these Christian callers is to say you should become a Muslim, because according to the Quran, if you pray to Jesus, you're a candidate for hell. You're a sinner just for praying to Jesus, and well, that's scary. So you should be a Muslim just in case.
Yeah.
It's a very popular religion. It's the fastest growing. I think there's almost as many Muslims as there are Christians.
And it's taken over Christianity's original turf. The first 2 Christian countries were Egypt and Syria. Now, very, very firmly, and for a long time, very, very firmly, Muslim countries. And calls like that last one amaze me. Not that she was, stealing our airtime to preach at us once again. They have enough shows of their own, but she didn't realize the contradiction in what she was saying. Did you catch it? She was saying God was trying, and then a bit later said He was omnipotent. Apparently, she doesn't notice her own contradiction there.
Well, of course, I think we all realize, having been religious before, that it's a paradigm. It's a set of assumptions. Religion is that it's hard to escape from. It's not anybody's fault. I mean, we don't think people are stupid or anything like that because they don't see through it. It's hard to see through. But once you see through it, it's like, oh man, how could I miss that? Let's go ahead.
Well, the very last time I was in a church, the preacher bragged about the Christian virtue of self-restraint. So I'm probably more sensitized than the rest of you to callers who don't let us finish our say on our own show here, like that last one.
Well, yes, and I appreciate her letting us get our sides out. There is a kind of a tendency, I don't know if y'all have noticed it, but when we're having a discussion with a Christian, the emotions get strong, and there tends to be there's a tendency to interrupt. And frankly, I think we do that less than they do. I'm proud of that,
but then we don't go
this is
around.
our show, so
we don't go around bragging about the atheist virtue of self-restraint either.
True. Okay. Well, let's see, Keith, who we got up next?
Mary.
Good morning, Mary.
Good morning, ACA. How
Hi, Mary.
are y'all?
Hi.
I listened to the last call, and she really insulted my intelligence. I mean, the contradictions were all there. She was mouthing all of them, and she didn't even get it. It was right over her head. Poor thing. Anyway, I called for a real reason.
I've been there. I've been where she was, though.
So have I, but I kept my mouth shut. I mean, I didn't tell everybody, this is what I believe, and you're wrong, and you're going to hell if you don't believe it. I would never have done that. But I've got my own agenda, okay? I'm calling about what's really scary to me. Well, see, the thing about how religion treats women used to cause me a lot of agony. That people could believe that we were this animal-like thing really insulted my intelligence, and in living with it day to day, it was real difficult because it gives people a certain attitude that I don't like. But I've gotten to the point where I can laugh about it, to think that someone could be stupid enough to believe that. It's kind of comical to me. The part I still can't laugh at, and I'm really humorless about it, is the Manichean mind-body split. Because I think that's where a lot of the problems come up with this, okay? They hate the body, they hate the things of the body, therefore the body is Satan's, and the mind or the heart, or I don't know which one they picked out really, is where God is, okay? And that causes rape and murder and all kinds of evil doings that Pascal just talked about in passing, you know, when he said the sum of evil would be much diminished if people would learn to sit quietly in their rooms. Well, I wish he had lived by his words. Apparently he didn't either.
He actually did. He was a sickie, and he was basically bedridden most of his adult life. So the problem isn't with what he said, it's with what he wrote.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, you're right. Well, that was all I wanted to talk about this morning. It still bothers me. I don't know if I'm big enough intellectually to overcome the problem, because I still have problems with my body. You know, it works out to where they get even the last of us and our self-esteem. They want the very last of us. Even someone as humble as I am, they don't want me to be happy. They don't want me to have self-esteem. They don't want me to believe in myself. I'm supposed to believe in in something bigger than me. But I don't want to be a follower. A follower doesn't bring anything to the table. You know what I mean? They're bringing just a burden. I want to lead myself, and that's why one of the things I call myself is an anarchist. Because, you know, we believe that nobody can tell us better what to do than ourselves in our lives, which is okay by me. I can live with that responsibility. I don't know what the problem is except fear, okay? Just raw, naked fear. That's what it is. Sorry to put such a sad note on it, but geez, you know, I only get to talk to you guys once a week, and then you're going to hear a lot of stuff, okay?
Okay, Mary.
Thanks for letting me call.
You bet. Hang in there. Don't be a victim, okay?
Okay.
Can I say a couple of things?
Go ahead.
Get me on camera. It was very interesting what you were saying about there would be a lot less, I guess you were passing on Pascal's comments, that there would be a lot less trouble in the world if people would just sit quietly in a room. Well, yeah, there'd also be a lot less trouble in the world if people would just be, like, chained up in prisons. You know, that just being quiet and going along to get along does not necessarily advance civilization. You know, it doesn't get things done. It just puts power directly in the hands of the people that want to take advantage of you sitting quietly and, you know, not questioning anything and not looking at anything and not doing what you think is best. And my other comment was about anarchy, which, you know, it seems to me that you know, anarchy is one of those things that looks really attractive until you realize that human beings have this tendency to organize. And, you know, the first thing that happens after you achieve anarchy is you start getting new governments and new governing bodies, in my opinion.
Okay.
What's next?
Well, ready to go to AJ? Good morning, AJ.
Hey, how you guys doing?
We're doing all right. How about you?
All right. I just want to say this is my first time calling. This is my first time even watching this show.
Yeah.
Well, welcome.
A lot of blasphemies coming out of there, but that's okay.
Blasphemy is a victimless crime.
No, I welcome blasphemies because all that tells me is you guys are fulfilling nothing more than Bible prophecy. But anyway, I wanted to talk, since we're on the subject of Bible prophecy, that's one of my hang-ups in the Bible. I am a Bible fundamentalist
Need to
Christian.
turn your TV down, please.
Oh, turn the TV down there. I just wanted to, in the world events right now, as far as what's going on in Kosovo, you know, what do you think about that? I mean, what's your view on that as far as, let me just back up a little bit. Did you ever think in your wildest dreams as you were growing up, or as we were growing up, that you ever see Russia liberated like it is, or now it's falling apart? Apparently the democracy there just didn't work out. But did you ever think in your wildest dreams that Russia itself would ever be so liberated that now you got all this chaos going on? But what do you think about the events in Kosovo? As far as, I mean, do you think there's any kind of biblical scripture or backing up, leading to something maybe that is prophesied for later on?
Does the Bible say Kosovo? Is the word in there anywhere?
As a matter of fact, you know, even you know, I talked to a lot of my a lot of my Christian friends also about you know, the world events, since I'm a prophecy nut. And you know, people can talk all they want about, well, I know the Bible, I know this, I know that. You know, you have a problem here. You know what I mean? This is in the scriptures, and it's always been. You got Ezekiel 38 and 39. The stage is set. It's ready to go.
And it says Kosovo there.
It says Magog,
which means
and that's
what?
Kosovo.
No, well, that is all of Russia, including its ex countries. You know, I mean, You know,
Okay.
No, it isn't.
The problem is, if your Bible was written by an omniscient being who knew exactly what was going to happen in the future,
Right.
there is no excuse for that being not putting the name of the country and the specifics of what's actually going on. Because those specifics are not in there, and what is in there is a bunch of stuff being interpreted to be related to actual events. What's happening is that interpretation is being imposed by the people doing the interpreting. There is not a shred of prophecy in the Bible.
Oh, but on the contrary. But do you know why God does that? Do you know why he has the prophets write those names out? And when he talks about a name, do you know why he does that? See, that's our fault. You as a human,
fault?
this is our fault.
We have power over God.
No. It's our fault that he uses those names. See, because
Why?
God, since he can see the beginning and the end, he knows how foolish we are to change a name every time. You can go on the same street, and it'll be the same street, yet it'll have five different names by the time you get to its destination.
Excuse me, may I say something? You're saying it's our fault because we changed the names of stuff?
Oh, yes.
But if your God is omniscient, he knew we were going to change those names. He could have put the word Kosovo in there before anybody knew what it was.
Yeah, but if you're going to...
Why didn't he?
But if you're God, you're going to
How come your God didn't know that?
But see, God is smarter than that. He's going to use the origin of the names. He's going to use the forefathers of that name.
Why?
You know, those people
But
have
I thought the
forefathers
purpose of
like you and I
prophecy
do.
was. I thought the purpose of prophecy was to tell us what was going to happen.
No, see,
Why doesn't he tell us what's
that's
going to happen?
That's a misconception. See, people don't understand what Bible prophecy is. And they
It's
don't
not to tell us
understand
what's
what
going to
prophecy
happen?
is. If I ask you, okay, in your mind, what do you think prophecy is? Well, what would you tell me? Well, what is your...
I just did tell you what I thought it was.
Well, see, you're wrong, because...
You're not following
if
his
you know anything
script.
about the Bible, you know what Bible prophecy is. The Bible tells you
There
what
is
prophecy
a I can't quote you chapter and verse, but and maybe you'll agree with this and maybe you won't. But there's some point in the Bible where, or maybe this was in well, isn't it prophecy supposed to be the test of the prophet? I mean, that's how you know if somebody's a prophet or not, by whether their prophecies happen.
Yeah, that was Ezekiel's brag.
Okay.
Ezekiel, by the way, blew it pretty badly earlier, prior to his citation, concerning both Babylon and Egypt. He prophesied that Tyre was going to be destroyed by Nebuchadnezzar's Babylonian armies, that they would invade that island fortress, trod down its walls, and destroy it for all time. Nebuchadnezzar's soldiers never entered the town. They held it under siege for 13 years and gave up. The city of Tyre, now called Sur, is a thriving town today. Ezekiel blew it with prophecy regularly. And by his own admission, well, he's a prophet when the prophecy comes true. By his own definition, Ezekiel was no prophet.
Well, I beg to differ. But just to let you know what prophecy is nothing more than knowing God's plan. See, because that's what prophecy is all about. It's about knowing God's plan.
So why doesn't God make it more clear?
It's not about it.
If God is omniscient, God would have known that names were going to get changed. He'd have known that in advance. He could have told his prophet, write down the word Kosovo. You don't know what that means? Go ahead, write it down anyway. Trust me, right? Which he's doing all the time.
So you mean
what is the excuse for God not doing that? It's your God is not omniscient.
Okay, well, let's just say that you're somewhere dead on the streets, and I have no identity to who you are, and I want to find out where you came from. Why don't I just pull some DNA out of whatever's left of you, and I guarantee you that'll take me to the origin where you might be from. So why go ahead and use future names when I can go to the origin of the original, the forefathers?
But your example has nothing to do with this omnipresent, supernatural, world-creating, omniscient, omnipotent God.
Okay, well,
what is his excuse for not being clear? There's no excuse. Except that maybe he doesn't exist, or at the very least doesn't have all the powers attributed to him.
Right. Okay, I'll give you that much, and it's only because Jesus said that there would be people that are not allowed to see. And the only reason for that is because you can read the Bible all you want. As a matter of fact, even Lucifer reads his Bible, and he understands. Why? Because he believes. But let me tell you something.
Well, then he'll be in heaven, won't he?
To understand something. The whole Bible is a huge parable. It was meant to be that way. because you got to give something in order to understand it. That's the way God set it up to be, and you'll never understand.
Okay, we got to move on. Thank you for your call.
All right.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Don't
You
forget
bet.
the Bible says that the unbelievers will walk by sight and not by faith, which sort of contradicts what you just quoted.
Yeah, now it's a human virtue to say what you mean and mean what you say, isn't it? Don't we consider straight talk a positive quality? Why do believers hold their God to a lesser standard than we hold people to?
Right. And I would agree with Jeff. What would it look like if there was somebody that actually had the power to prophesy? What would we expect to see? We'd expect to see people foretelling things in the future that we would go, yeah, okay, it's really in there. And when you look at the Bible with a critical eye, I think we would at least agree that no, we really don't see that. What would you expect to see if people were trying to prophesy and they really couldn't do it? Pretty much what we got.
You'd expect to see a bunch of stuff that if you interpret allegorically and you're positively disposed toward the reputation of the person whose prophecy you're interpreting, you would bend over backwards to take the words that were there and twist them to mean whatever it is you think they need to mean in order to make it look like that prophecy was correct. And that's exactly what's going on.
Right.
I have my Bible open now to Ezekiel's failed prophecy concerning Tyre. In case anyone else chooses to differ on it, we can go through it verse by verse and see what part of Nebuchadnezzar and what part of forever is misunderstood.
Okay, well let's go ahead to Florence. Good morning.
Good morning.
Turn your TV down a little bit, please.
Okay. Okay, yes. I'm myself, I'm glad y'all have this show. I wish that there was a Christian show and a Muslim show where we could call in and have a discussion, because there are people like me. I'm not an atheist, and I'm not, I guess, a Christian. I know I'm not a Christian, but I don't believe in the Bible. I am a black, and I'm also Native American.
Okay.
My people, blacks, did not believe in Jesus and knew nothing of the Bible when they came here. But now, my family itself is like 95% religious. They believe it wholeheartedly, and so that makes me a little oddball in the family, you know. Okay, I can deal with that. My problem is I'm trying to find my spiritual way home. I want to know if there is a God, who God is. And I feel like if people really believe in the Bible say God is a jealous God. Don't put nobody else, no other God before him. I think if that's true, these people are putting, especially for me, black people, and Native Americans, if they believe in Jesus, then they put in another God before the real God, or if God does exist. I don't know, you know. So, like I said, I'm trying to find my way. I really wish there were more people we could discuss this with and really find out the truth, you know.
Well, I think there are, now I don't know if there's a Muslim show, but I think there's at least one call-in Christian show, and I bet there's more than that.
Oh, really? I've never seen a call-in Christian show.
Let's see, Defense of the Faith is a call-in show, isn't it? They have, their viewpoint is as narrow as ours, but I mean, there's stuff out there. The problem is, or let me make a suggestion, is that you, if you're looking for, if you're really searching, if you want to find out what the truth is, then cast your net kind of wide and include some skeptical, critical thinking kind of stuff in there, because there's an awful lot of people that will tell you this and that, and it's, you know, the only thing you have to go by is them saying it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the real catch there. And then I don't know. Then they say the spirit thing. I've never been able to just really believe, because there's so many questions in the Bible I have. Even when I was in church, you know, I've always, and people now don't invite me to go to church. Maybe one or two people every once in a while. because I don't understand, or I understand it, I interpret it a different way, and it seems like a lot of people are able to do that, take those scriptures and reinterpret them, to mean something else, and somebody else over there, another religion, said, well, that's what it meant over there. Hi, how do you believe? How do you believe? I don't know, I just don't have that faith, and I wish I did, because sometimes I really want to get in there with them and sing and praise and all that stuff, but then I feel like I would be a hypocrite, and God, if there is a God knows mine ain't real, but theirs might be, I don't know,
Well, understand, I'm glad you don't have that faith. Now, understand that that it looks like fun, and that there's a lot of things that church offers that that really don't have that much to do with religion. You know what I'm talking about? Like, it's a good place to get married, and it's a good place to meet when you die, for funerals. There's social activities, and people get positive feelings from participating, just like our members get a positive feeling for showing up down here and doing all this work for free. There's things about it. I can see why you would kind of wish that you were in the flock, I guess is one way to put it. But hang in there. Hang in there. Don't give up. It's there are other things you can do to get those same things. You may want to do volunteer work. You get out and participate in things that you do feel good about, that you think are based on truth and positive thinking.
Okay.
Well, I appreciate your call, Florence.
Okay. Thank you too.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for calling. I really feel for her as she's black and descended from Native Americans, two people that were run roughshod over by Christians.
Absolutely, golly.
That's really, that must be rough. But
okay, yeah, let's
keep pointing. Oh,
Leo, turn your TV down just a little bit.
Turn the TV down, Dina. Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning, Leo.
Hey, I wanted to, you were just talking, I'm listening to you, and you said that God has not made things very clear, but He has put in the heart of every believer that, we believe in the promises of God, and God has promised, and we can only tell when we die as Christians, that we die in the Lord, that we will be given eternal life. So the point of I'm trying to say is that we walk by faith, not by sight, meaning that when we die, and we died in the faith, believing that God, what He told us is true, then everything is going to be proven at that point. I mean, because He promised. I mean. When you're in the ground and in your spirit, there's two deaths. If you
From here we go down to the bagel shop, Jumbo Bagel Bakery.